Toyota machines have become something of a rarity, and because of that, I have never had a chance to knit on one before. But Jack is doing a refurb on a 901, and I'm the tester, so I'm learning the Toyota machine. It's new to me too. I'm going by the manual and my other knitting machine experience and discovering all kinds of fascinating things. So if you see me fumble, backtrack, and straighten something out, that's why. This is not a machine upon which I have a great deal of expertise yet, but it's a very interesting machine, and so far I'm enjoying it, and I thought you might like to see what we've discovered.
Hey Toyota knitters, we don't get a lot of Toyotas to work on, and I don't own one, so you don't get many videos, but today we have one. I want to show you about selecting patterns. As I rotate this outside ring, you should be seeing an indicator.
We are.
Oh, can you see it? Good.
Yeah, I'm getting in close, but we are seeing it jump back and forth, little green into the view spot.
So there's nothing odd about the way this is done. It's just not the way we're used to looking at it. Now, so far, I think this means it's going to tuck going left, tuck going both directions, tuck going right, plain stockinette, two-color knitting, that's Fair Isle. Empty, mystery, it's slip stitch, slip going left, slip both ways, slip going right, and that's in response to the card. So let's go back to plain stockinette knitting and do a little bit. Very nice touch, very light feel.
A good comparison, because people are always asking us, what's the better machine? And one of the things Catherine likes to point out, do you have difficulty pushing the carriage? Some carriages require a lot more strength than others. So that could be a factor if you have a grip problem,
Fibromyalgia,
a shoulder problem, then go with something that's got a real light feel to it.
These things over here, I'm working with both of them forward. They'll also go there, and this is a release of some sort.
I think that releases this back to possibly.
Yeah, we're still experimenting. We haven't even located and downloaded a manual yet. But for plain knitting, I have been using this setting, and for response to the punch card, I've been using this setting, and so far all is well. So that's where I am in figuring it out.
Let me point this out while you're there.
Yeah.
If this is in the O position, this will disengage it from the belt. That's what I found out putting it on.
Okay.
So, there you
and
go.
the belt is a timing belt. So everything I just said about light touch, now we just, by putting them both to C and running across, we set it up to select needles. That is a feature in common with brothers. In order to use your punch cards, you have to do a setup row, and you can see that it's pre-selecting needles just as a brother does. So let's go to tucking both directions. You want to show them this card, sweetie? Very common card, which I often use for testing because it's so symmetrical, and you can tell if the machine is responding properly because you know how this is supposed to look.
And there's your key pattern that swaps. So that's, the needle butts are easy to see if they're doing what they're doing.
That's exactly right. Now, if you're not used to what this is supposed to look like, I will now knit you some and you'll get used to it. Ready to tuck. Now we are pulling a timing belt. So it gets to be more work. I'm not having the slightest trouble with one hand, but then people do call me Arnold. It's not that bad. Again, you just need to be aware if you're suffering from something that makes your strength bad, or you're very prone to repetitive strain syndrome due to an old injury, that would be something to consider. It tucks really nicely, and this is what we're looking at. Common tuck pattern. It's very useful because it makes like a thermal fabric. It's got a pretty texture. We normally use the purl side, and it gets wider. So if you're knitting for plus sizes or blankets, you're really happy to get that width. Now, without changing anything else, we're going to switch over to empty, which just really bothers me. It sounds like it's going to fall off, but since it's slip stitch, not really empty, we're good to go.
And if you'll notice, no thumbs were in the way in this video.
We've been working on our filmography skills. I need to stop and get this card out of the way. The Toyota has clips just like every other punch card. This one came with some. I just haven't used them. Oh, and this is not a Toyota card. This machine didn't arrive with any, but all 24 stitch punch card machines pretty much use the same cards. The difference is what's your starting row, and for sampling, I don't even need to care about that. So I think this one, maybe a brother card, maybe a studio. I can't quite remember.
It's a brother.
Okay, thank you. It doesn't much matter. I use them interchangeably. And there's our slip stitch pattern forming.
Now, the reason we're doing this is we were given this machine to be evaluated. The customer wants to know, is this a worthwhile investment? Is this something that needs some serious cleaning and will work just fine? And that's what it's looking like so far.
We did discover something that you may find on a used machine. Here we go.
Yeah.
Somebody cleaned up the machine quite well, probably, but they missed this. There is crud. Back off a little. I don't think the focus is not good. Each needle has a band of crud on it. I took an emery board and did these center needles, cleaned them up gently in order to get it to knit at all, because this is rough enough to cause stitch problems and dropping and to make you think the machine doesn't work. What we're going to do is oil soak them and then scrub it off gently with a, what kind of brush? Brass brush. And then do some final hand cleaning. But I got them clean enough with this for this test. If you buy a machine that's been cleaned up by somebody who is attentive to detail but not a knitter, I think this is the kind of thing that could happen.
Right.
It was a good attempt. You can see how nice it looks.
Yeah, and you can see what's happened is the section of the needle that's in here. Mm-hmm. So you cleaned all out in here and you sprayed real good, but right in there underneath that hard surface.
It was a good attempt, but I think that the seller was a good worker, not a knitter, and missed this.
Well, and let me point this out because I get this question all the time. Yes, if I deep soak the bed in Marvel Mystery Oil, I will leave the needles in. And what that's going to do is loosen all of that contamination, so it'll come off pretty easy.
And often what we do is after that, we'll take each one out, wipe it down, and clean out the channel manually, because that's not always enough, but they do respond very well to the deep soak, and then we clean it off.
Right.
Okay, I'm selecting from, I was on slip. I'm going to color, spelled the British way, but we get to use it too, for Fair Isle. That's a normal yarn gate, and we need it in the closed position so that feeder 2, which I've got my second color in, color.
Colour. Oh, I like Colour and coffee.
Colour has coffee in it. Oh, that's nice. Yes, I definitely think we're going to tell our friend that this machine is worth some attention so that it'll run easily another decade without a fuss.
And we have a river to check with it. Mm-hmm. And, of course, the sponge bar was flop-bot.
Oh, yeah. This, by the way, that's a reference to a James Herriot novel. So, you know, we're not one-dimensional people. We do all kinds of things. Flop-bot is a silly term from there. Let's look over here. I want to show them this sponge bar situation. We are using a Studio sponge bar because we had one on hand. Brother Studio and Toyota are not very far apart in size, but the Brother was a little too wide, and we could have shoved it in, but it was a tight squeeze, and they're not supposed to be. The Studio slid in just fine. So what I will do is rebuild her real Toyota sponge bar, but we wanted to do a test today. And FYI, this does seem to work. It's a touch long. You can see it on both ends, just this much. Personally, I like that. It makes it more accessible.
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier to get out as long as
it's not tidy, but I'm a fan anyway, and sometimes I do that on purpose. So that was the sponge bar issue. Singer Studio ones apparently work. Brother ones apparently don't.
Right.
The old tray is quite rebuildable. Over here, a mystery for me to work on. As I said, I'm still looking for a manual. At the present, I have no clue what that all means. None. And it may offer some wonderful new possibilities. And we'll work on that. And I do want you to show them over here. This machine has a feature that, while minor, I think is just neater than grits. Every smooth space is used with some measuring devices. These are plainly millimeters. 30, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, you couldn't see me, could you?
I could, but...
No, the camera couldn't. Here we go. 30 millimeters. That's actually centimeters, sorry.
Right.
The little lines are millimeter increments. The short, tall lines are half centimeters. The tall lines are whole centimeters. For inch users like myself, this is not really a problem. We know that 4 centimeters, let's see, no, 10 centimeters, which is there, 10 centimeters equals 4 inches. So you can still make use of this. And having this measuring device handy when you want to hold up a swatch or something and get an idea, it's just the neatest thing. I think that's it for today. What do you think?
I think we've covered this. Let's check the ribber.
Something about the punch card. With most punch cards, you have to depress the button to start turning, but this one you really do. It's quite a noticeable movement. So if you don't get a response right away or from a gentle push, that's all it is. And like most, this seems to be the locked position. Won't go. This the normal position, and that automatically doubles the length of the pattern. Okay, we're working on the Toyota 901. Now we're working with the lace carriage, and you will notice we don't have any lace rails to the left and the right. They didn't come to us, but if I knit a small bit here in the center, we can still test. This is very, very much like a brother lace arrangement. I'm even using a brother card because none came with the machine, and it did work. So on this kind of card, this is telling us that little whoop-de-doo arrow that goes around the corner. It's okay. It's telling us it's time to knit with the main carriage. Unlike normal knitting, the main carriage is not engaging the timing belt or advancing the card. So I make one set of passes with it. Now this one selects. It's selected. It's going to transfer. Show my finger. It's going to transfer these needles next trip, or those stitches on those needles. It did so. It selected one more. So we go back. Nothing else was selected. We make another trip back and check the card. It's showing the little curvy arrow, so it's time for a main carriage row. 2 rows actually. You got to knit left and right. Now, that always upsets me. It didn't advance the card. But they knew that when they designed the cards. So don't be dismayed. Let your lace carriage go across. Nothing may happen first pass. Now something does. And here, we need to push the needles. Toyota says within 4 needles of the edge, or 4 stitches, they should not be part of the pattern. So you just push them back.
That's so you won't drop stitches along the edge of your knitting.
That's exactly right. This one, no problem. So back we go.
And you could see where if we were using a wider set of needles or needles in a different position, the card may go for quite some time and never pass that end needle rule. But right now we're working at a very small piece.
You can see what's happening. I'll put my fingers behind it. I ran out of the yellow yarn, which made it much more obvious. Let's go have a look over here again. See the little arrow going around?
Right.
That means it's time to run the main carriage.
Yes, in this particular setup, there's a double lock system to put the lace carriage on, and one of the locks is where it engages the timing belt.
Okay, go down here. See, both of those are against the rules. Both of these are against the rules.
Right, so we push them back in. And it'll have to do without them this time.
Looks like the pattern's finished.
It is,
and it's time to knit
right
with the main carriage. So it's very simple. And Jack, you wanted to tell the people something about the difference between the Toyota lace carriage and other lace carriages, didn't you?
Well, it's just that if you'll notice, on most lace carriages, there's a button right here. See if I can get my fingers out of the way and in the way. There's one button right here that releases the carriage. This one has two. You heard one. Now you hear the other one.
It's the locks on the left
I'm
and
going to pull it up, and I'm going to show you that one button moves those two stobs. See them moving in?
Sure do.
The other button moves that lock rail. Normally it's that lock rail that the one button moves that lets the carriage go on. But this one, those two lock it into the timing belt. So this is very unlike the brother, where if you're not careful and you go to use the main carriage while the lace carriage is on the bed with the brother, you'll walk the lace carriage right off because they're both hooked to the timing belt. That's why the rail keeps the lace carriage from falling off, because when you bring the main carriage from the right on the brother machine, it's driving the timing belt, which will push your lace carriage right off the end of the machine. So this is a little better design in that respect.
From a knitting point of view, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah, from the knitting point of view, but from the manual operation, you can actually do this, and we're doing it without the rails on there. And
there's our lace. It's stretched out of shape because I've still got weights on it. Let me see if I can flip it over for you.
But it's very pretty.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Very nice. Okay. Hey, here's the left rail for the lace carriage.
And I think that is all there is for this one. They said left and right, but this is all we have for it.
Well, I think there's another one. It's just that we don't have it right now.
Right.
However, you might want to see how that comes off and on. On is just a piece of cake, but it folds up. Can you believe it?
Right. Which is nice because if you can shine back over here, see when I'm putting it on and off, I can actually walk the sides in.
And then it stores like that.
There you go.
And I didn't recognize it at first. That's how come
Neither
we thought
did I.
We had none, but there it is.
That's it, just like that. Notice how it forms a nice square end right there so that it goes into its clip.
And there's a clip in the case cover, as there often is for lace rails.
For accessories.
Yeah. So there you go. Working with the Toyota color changer on the 901 today. It's got a couple odd things about it. This is where it sits, and that's not very odd. When you want to change colors, you just do that. Now this is the color that will be loaded next. That one automatically pops out of the way when you select this one, and so forth. And right now, this is the one that I've been using. Here's something I've not seen before. Look at that. Each one of those colors has a position in that threading setup. So I haven't figured out how to go around the color changer and skip it and load these by hand. I have 4 colors set up at present. If you find the instructions for this color changer a little arcane and hard to follow, don't feel bad. I did too. You must have the left lace rail on. I guess it's also a color changer rail, but you must have it because you have to pass all the way past this needle by quite a bit to get the loading done correctly. Show you how to load this. We've come down straight from the eyelet on the bug head is what we call it, the antenna.
I call it a bug head.
And now I've picked it up, but he's a bad influence.
Here we go. Here's my tail, and I want my tail to be coming down the bottom when I get through. So here's the working end of the yarn. No, it isn't. Yeah, there it is. And then around that, and I don't know if you can see, but it is in the little roller. It's also in this wire catch. And then we go down and hook it on our keeper.
Now, the manual that we have does not actually show either what they call the hook or I think the clip. There's a clip under here.
Right.
It shows them differently than what we've got here.
Right. Here is the clip on the bottom, and this would be mounted this way. This particular arm is if you have the ribber on, and you can see how it is cut out here to let the ribber bracket go past it.
So that's what the pictures in the manual look like. And it takes a little mental adjustment to realize that is also a hook and that is also a clip.
Yeah, and if you'll notice, this one is on the side as is pictured in the manual. And this hook is a little more prominent than this hook right here.
Now we're going to change colors.
Right. Okay. Here we come across. Now here's what the instructions are not that clear, but here's what we're doing. This is the color that we want to use next. These other two colors have to be pulled over here out of the way. And I found the safest thing is to go just on the outside of that bracket and hold them.
I somehow lost a color. Aha. The turquoise ran away. Okay. So I am holding it around the outside of the bracket with my fingers.
Right.
There's nothing in the manual that suggests that's a good idea, but that's the only way we've been able to make it reliably not get tangled. Is that correct?
That is correct. Now they say something about holding it below the gate pegs, but since it's already in our clip here, it seems just as easy to hold it back out of the way. And you'll see as we bring the carriage across why that's important.
But I want to address holding it below the gate pegs. The gate pegs begin here, of course, and they move across the bed. So in order to do what they show in the picture, which is a handful of yarn down here, you have to take everything out of every way it might be clipped, move them all to the other side, hold them down here with one hand, do the work with the other hand, then go back and put them all in, and this seems to be easier.
Yeah, this works better now.
And we didn't succeed in getting everything lined up their way. Okay,
here we go.
Coming across, the last row with the brown is normal.
Now you go past
way past
until, let me show that the carriage is actually off the bed completely onto the rail.
Now I'm going to select this color. This one automatically pulls back, and if all goes well and we hold our tongue right,
that's it. And it did. I saw it.
It loads another color, and we've knitted a row with the magenta.
All right, now let's show putting this, the color that we're no longer using, under the hook.
Okay. And here's what they say that I can see is accurate. If you're going to make short stripes and only need to hold this, Jack's trying to find it, and his arm won't bend in enough places. If you only need to change colors for a couple rows, just hook your spares in this hook. If it's going to be a long time, they say to use the one that's underneath. Now I'm having the same trouble down here.
Yes.
Knitting magenta, and we're going to change to the next color, which is turquoise.
Right. And what we're doing is we're holding the pink one out of the way.
One thing that's counterintuitive is you do not change the selector before moving across and past the last needle. There we go. You change it after, as Jack's doing now.
And the reason being is this alignment of the ends is what puts the thread in or out.
And across it goes, and you can see, yay, it picked up the new one. Once we got it figured out, it's been flawless. I can see that it's going to be a job to keep these things out of the way. You must not forget this hooking business, because imagine you're making a blanket or a large sweater, so you need pretty much all the needles. If these are riding up in this area where they will tend to do, you're going to get problems.
Right, yeah.
However, it's actually pretty impressive. This is actually the other mast that should be used, and the reason we bring it up is you saw us practicing with the wrong one. This machine came with multiple masts, and one of them is not actually from the machine. It doesn't fit properly in the socket. And so when you spot that, if you do, don't emulate it.
Right.
The Toyota is distinctive because of this. These are a little bit...
Look at these tensioners, and they're of a particular style. They match that.
The shape of them, the way they work is identical to everything else. The shape's a bit unique.
The one that we were using, and you can see
That's
it's a
too
brother
close.
style.
So this is a spare mast that's... This is an estate machine, I believe, and somebody tucked in an extra, which will be good to have, but it's not ideal for using on the color changer. Okay, now we are testing the Toyota with its KR501 ribber. First thing I want to show you is over here. We have borrowed a bulky studio sponge bar, and it is overly long, but it otherwise fits. Of course, the original bar was completely dead, and you need to know that because many ribbers don't use a true sponge bar. They have some other retainer bar. This one is a full sponge bar. You need to be aware that the Toyota uses a true sponge bar. There are other retaining bars, sometimes used on some ribbers, that don't have sponge, but with it being a full bar, then it's a maintenance issue. You must put new sponge on it or replace it when it wears out.
And we'll get one for the customer.
Oh, of course. Now, we're knitting full needle rib, which means that these needles are alternating. When they come forward, they won't bang into each other, which means setting it at half pitch. Look over here. P is pitch. They'll bang into each other. H is half pitch. We do use P for 1x1 ribbing because we're not using all of the needles. So when we alternate needles, they won't bang, but half pitch for full needle rib, which I'm testing with a very fine yarn. And now we're going to knit. Oh, let me show you the settings. Plain, up here for the main bed. You can maybe see that it's green. Green for go.
Yes, I see it.
And plain on both positions on the ribber. And off we go. This is the first time I have ever used a ribber that left you with handles on both beds that I can recall. But here we are, and it's very nice. Now, if I can remember how to set this for circular, I will. Here down in there, I'm knitting actually a tube. Let's hold it till the focus gets better. There we go. Ah, now you can see. My finger would go in there. There are all kinds of uses for a tube, and on this Toyota ribber, it has instructed us that the end needle should actually always be on the ribber on both ends. That's a little unusual. I made an exception because that doesn't make a nice tube. That makes a hitch in the end. So I have still got my needles on half pitch, and I really should put them to pitch for this, but since I'm about to go back soon, I won't. Over here, plain knitting on the left, empty on the right. Up here, empty on the left. And that's what makes it knit a tube. It knitted on the ribber, knitted the main bed. Ribber, main bed. Remember that most of us would not really think of this as empty, but skipping or slipping or bypassing. So that's sort of empty, and that will help you remember. This ribber's good. It's doing a great job now that we put a sponge bar in. Oh, and by the way, you all know yarn this fine is something of a challenge. That's why I'm doing it, to see how good this ribber actually is. So that's good.